They had it down in Florida because of the whole COVID crisis going on there. We'll have some clips and stuff on that. We're doing that. I'm going to cover a couple. I want to do Kristi Noem and Ron DeSantis, the governors of South Dakota and Florida. On that, I don't think they got as much, or everybody's obviously talking about Trump and everything else, but I think they had some very interesting things to say. Plus, there was a very interesting dynamic in the straw poll that had those two in it. So we'll see on that. Of course, Gavin Newsom's saying that he has a deal with the legislature to reopen the schools. Big deal. If you got a deal to reopen it with the legislature, there's a little thing called the teachers' unions and the teachers and the school districts and all that other stuff. Are they going to sign on? We had some very interesting video clips to go through on GavNew and some of the teachers' reps on the board on that. So we'll obviously be covering that. On top of that, the old saga of the Mafia Don family of Comos in New York, the whole deal. Man, that story's taking some weird and even some creepy twists and turns on that. The Cuomos have been like, they think New York is their private playground and they're the ones that dictate all that stuff. But it looks like Andrew Cuomo, the second governor, and followed in his father's footsteps as governor, looks like he's finally getting some of the comeuppance or hot water that he really should have been into, as I call him with Gavin Newsom, his evil twin. It's very apropos that both of them that have screwed up this whole COVID thing, and both of them are now, Gavin Newsom facing recall. I don't think they have a recall in New York, but Cuomo is on top of it, or even Democrats are talking about impeaching him. I think they already limited it, his emergency powers on top of that. But one of the things that I had up here, and I want to look for it. So yes. I think Debbie Lynn sent this in on that. Flip me up number 4, please. Since this is March 1st, March is National Stop Blaming White People Month. Accept responsibility for your own bad choices. Hug a white person. This whole thing has been going on back and forth on that. This whole ridiculous stuff of blaming, the white privilege. As I've said, the whole lexicon that's been, blame the straight white male for everything. He's evil. He's suppressing everybody. They got all the money. They're the warlords, slumlords, everything else lords, yada, 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 that's going on back and forth. And everything, if there's something went wrong, blame it on a straight white male because they're the punching bag for what's going on. If you don't want to take responsibility for your actions, then you go back and forth and you take it and say, "Oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. It isn't my fault. I don't want." It so reminds me of the whole lexicon that's going on across the board that we do in our society, because we look back and forth on this, and it's everybody, like with the safety and all the other stuff that we have each and every day, and the whole helicopter.
There's a terrible curse that plagues guitar.
And you go back and forth on all this stuff. It's really, 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 really disheartening of what's going on. But I finally found it of this. This is Buddy Brown on the Truck Sessions. He's got a new song that's coming out, and I want to play it for you off the top of the show because I thought it was absolutely apropos for National Hug a White Person Month. Here we go.
What's going on, y'all? In honor of Coca-Cola, I have written a brand new song for you called Be Less White. That's right. The pamphlet that's going around Coca-Cola to all their employees right now, if you hadn't been paying attention, is how to be less white. All the reasons white people are bad. You know, at some point, I'm just like, damn. The hatred is real. Can you imagine if we released a pamphlet called Be Less Black? Can you imagine if Coca-Cola did that? What would happen? Y'all, I'm from Mississippi. I don't care who you are, what walk of life you come from. You come down here and have a beer with me anytime. But this is getting comical. It's getting ridiculous. At a certain point, I think in America, we just need to be less stupid. That's what we need to be. Hope y'all like this song. Be proud of who you are no matter where you came from. In the meantime, we need to be less white. Coca-Cola's done lost their dadgum minds. Yeah, the white guilt's hitting pretty hard this time. I thought I'd seen it all, but as it turns out, I have to change my skin to live this one down. We gotta be less white, be less white. This liberals gone wild and they lost their minds. We gotta be less white, be less white. Now I'm switching to Pepsi and it's all alright. They said to be less white is to be less oppressive, be less certain and less defensive, be less arrogant, try to actually listen. Well, Coke ain't getting served in my kitchen. Be less white, hell, be less white. This liberals gone wild and they lost their minds. We gotta be less white, be less white. Now I'm switching to Pepsi and it's all alright. Well, I got something for your little online training class. Take your little pamphlet and stick it right back up your ass. While I try to be less white, be less white. It's liberals gone wild and they lost their minds. We gotta be less white, be less white. Now I'm switching to Pepsi and it's all alright. God bless y'all. Be sure to subscribe. That might even end up being the new theme song over at Pepsi. I don't think the boys at Coca-Cola are going to like it much, but over at Pepsi, you can have it if you want it. Hey, it's a good thing all that snow thawed out last week. It's getting way too white around here. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Y'all be good.
That's Buddy Brown, Gotta Be Less White on the show. I thought that song was apropos for March's Stop Blaming White People Month on that. Put that number 4 back up on the screen on there. And I mean, we put it on there jokingly a little bit for you on that, but really, this whole thing is, and I get to the bottom part of that. Accept responsibility for your own bad choices. Quit trying to blame everybody else on every other thing going on of that, and we'll all be a lot better off on this whole deal. We won't be fighting with each other, getting all up, just jacked out of shape on this, that, and every other thing. And let's just deal with reality. Like you said, be anti-stupid should be the next thing, because that's what this whole thing is all about. In the case of anti-stupid, mentioning that, saying that, we get to our somewhat, I don't even want to use the words I want to describe this doofus, Gavin Newsom. So he rolls up on about 11 o'clock today and supposedly announces this supposedly school reopening plan that he has with the legislature. He makes that, and they have Ray Don and Atkins or whatever from the assembly and all that, and they make the big signing deal. And we're gonna give away $6 more billion of your money down this to make all this, that, and the other, and yada yada yada. All this. So it comes to the question: have you got a deal with the teachers unions and whatnot? So here is Gavin Newsom at the press conference. Here we go.
Be where we are today.
So you're saying that you do have that buy-in from those large districts and large teachers unions,
that
I'm
you
sure
expect they'll actually move forward?
Yeah, I'm sure you'll find some people that will have strong opinions. Look, the bottom line is we created a framework that we believe is consensus. That in consensus doesn't mean everybody is happy. That's part of the negotiations, part of the process. You can get consensus in days that are perfect with an abundance of everything and no concerns around health risks across any spectrum. So the bottom line is this was done with the spirit of collaboration, bottom up, not top down. And
if he uses the word collaboration, or cooperation, one more time, he should be recalled just on that, because that's getting annoying in of itself. Look what he said. He said the question was, and it was asked twice. And I didn't want to go through the whole thing, and it was about 4 or 5 minutes. But the reporter asked him again, do you have buy-in from the teachers unions? They're going to go back to class. Here we go. So this is Cicely Myert Cruz, president of United Teachers of Los Angeles. She was put the UTLA, and she puts out an update every Friday. Well, they were putting it on the website until last week, their own UTLA website, and then all of a sudden it popped off of there. Well, they figured they'd try and hide it on Facebook where nobody would find it. Ha ha ha. So this is Cicely Myert Cruz. Pull up number 4, please, and look at what it says. No current plans to arbitrarily reopen schools on April 9th. Mind you, if you're going to get the money or all this stuff and all this, you're supposed to be open by March 31st. Here we go. This is Cicely Myert Cruz.
Some confusion and has been misinterpreted by some in the media. There are no current plans to arbitrarily reopen schools on April 9th. The April 9th date has not been presented in bargaining between UTLA and LAUSD, and we will reject any fixed date that ignores the elements of a safe return. We are bargaining over how to physically reopen in a hybrid model, and we have told the district that the agreement must include language over when to physically reopen in said hybrid model. That when to reopen must follow 3 main elements of a safe return. 1, LA County must be out of the purple tier. 2, staff required to return to in-person work are either fully vaccinated or provided access to full vaccination. And
okay. In the press conference in Newsom, he said there's no plan in here to vaccinate all the teachers, or it's not going to be required. Obviously, you heard Cicely Myert Cruz. There's no deal in place not to open by March 31st, not to open by April 9th. You heard Newsom, and he was asked the question twice. So there was no, I didn't understand it, or anything else. He said, oh yeah, we've got a deal in place with all this is happening, yada, yada, yada. Well, there's Cicely Myert Cruz, president of the second biggest teachers union in the United States. I think New York City schools are the only one that's bigger. Second biggest school district in the United States, biggest in California, and say, we ain't got any deal, and we're not going back until all of our teachers, all of our staff, probably all the kids too, are vaccinated. And when that happens, we'll come up with 37,493.76 reasons why we can't go back to school then. Because as you look, the bar is always moved. As soon as we meet a bar, or the bar just gets raised or moved or slid sideways, or we ignore it, or whatever, we come up with some other idiotic excuse. There is no way you get, and he double talked and I got to give it to the local media or the California media. They're starting to step up to the plate. They're not humming. They're not rolling, 2-mile-an-hour or softballs over the plate, and can you hit it out of the park? They're asking him tough questions. They're following up on him. Finally, they're smelling blood in the water, I think is why, over the recall. But they're throwing fastballs at him, and he double talked every question in the whole enchilada back and forth. Now, just one more example of this, and the press conference went actually it's a fairly short one. Usually it goes an hour and a half, but it only went like about 47 minutes, and about the first 15 was, all these other yucks. Now he doesn't come out in the beginning. He sends all these minions out for 10 or 15 minutes, and then he comes out, says a little bit, and then takes a few questions. So, and he was the first question out of the box was, you've put all the metrics up, or you say that all this data is up there that we're closing or opening schools, and we can look at it and yada, yada, yada. You haven't posted anything since January. We don't know what's going on. Oh, double talk, da-da-da-da. So we went through, I don't know, half a dozen reporters' questions went through. Then the last reporter stepped back up to the plate and asked him again because he double talked it all the way through. Here we go. We're going to play this little clip from Lion Gavin Newsom. Here we go.
Hi, Governor. Ashley Zabala with Nexstar Media Group. I'm just following up on John's question about the outbreak data in schools that are currently open. The last time we did get an update from CDPH was for the month of January. I was wondering if you, off the top of your head, might have that number for February. And in that same vein, is there a mandate in this agreement between you and the legislature on, I know you see a bright light, but a contingency plan in the event that COVID-19 becomes widespread again in communities across the state?
Yeah, I mean, look, no one's ideological about any of this. We're open argument, interested in evidence. We want to see where the epidemiology goes. We want to see what happens with these multiple variants. We have 2 West Coast variants. We're concerned about the South African variant. We don't have a Brazilian variant yet. We'll see if that happens. Obviously, we're concerned about the UK variant, over 200 cases now reported. We're all mindful of that. And so that, the future will unfold, and we will be very responsive to those changing conditions. And
oh yeah, the future's going to unfold, Gavin Newsom. Amongst not you, I can tell you why he's not answering why you're not posting the outbreak data in the schools, which means the schools that have been open, public or private. What's been the outbreak ratio of the COVID spread? Because it's been nil, almost 0. And they don't want to say that because then it would be, well, then why have we had our schools locked down, closed for almost a year, you yuckhead? That's why he doesn't want to do that. But yes, there's going to be a rude awakening for your little hiney, Gavin Newsom, and it's called recall. And this is to Atkins, the leader of the Senate up there, and Ranthony Radon of the House. Your butts are next, and everybody else there in the legislature. If you keep screwing around with this, or you try and screw around, or try and run it through the courts, or all this other crap that has been rumored going, once the recall's signatures are in, and if they're certified, which it looks like there's a darn good possibility of that 1.9 million and counting. Just keep poking the rattlesnake and see what happens. You might get away with it 999 times, but it's that 1000th time the rattlesnake wins. And that's what you're doing, Gavin Newsom. Each and every day you come up with this, and each day you come and you say, you run through these press conferences, and you're not, every question he done, they were direct, to the point, and very specific questions, and he just rattles all over the place. You cannot, in no way, can you run, I don't care, a popsicle cart like that, much less the state of California. Wanted to get to this one. Wanted to cover the CPAC stuff where we'll have Dr. Kelly Victory on after the bottom of the hour. A couple things. I wanted to run three short clips on here. This is Governor Kristi Noem of South Dakota, as she reminds you, the warmers of the two Dakotas, of what the problem is. This is at CPAC, Kristi Noem, her speech. Here we go.
Of welfare. And all of that changed in March. Now, most governors shut down their states. What followed was record unemployment, businesses closed, most schools were shuttered, and communities suffered. And the U.S. economy came to an immediate halt. Now, let me be clear. COVID didn't crush the economy. Government crushed the economy. And then, just as quickly, government turned around and held itself out as the savior. And frankly, the Treasury Department can't print money fast enough to keep up with Congress's wish list. But not everyone has followed this path. For those of you who don't know, South Dakota is the only state in America that never ordered a single business or church to close.
Hey, I don't know if you heard, but we just had a big development in the unfold.
South Dakota didn't suffer any of this ills because they were the only ones that no mask mandates, no closing of businesses, no nothing going on each and every day. They suffered, just bump that one off. They suffered each and every day of what's going on. The rest of us, like California, New York, with the twin evil twins, lockdowns and this, we're still debating whether we can open the schools or not, or how we're going to do it, or maybe we're going to do this. The teachers say no way in hell we're opening up any schools anytime soon, going back and forth, yada, yada, yada. Again, as Kristi Noem said, it's not COVID's problem, or COVID was not the problem. It was government that shut this stuff down, and government was the problem. Same thing, Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, where they were holding CPAC at Orlando, Florida. Here's his opening lines at that. We're going to go with this. Here's Ron DeSantis.
We are an oasis of freedom in a nation that's suffering in many parts of the country under the yoke of oppressive lockdowns. We look around at other parts of our country, and in far too many places we see schools closed, businesses shuttered, and lives destroyed. And while so many governors over the last year had kept locking people down, Florida lifted people up. Florida is leading in protecting our vulnerable residents, saving the economy, and safeguarding the freedom of our people. In Florida, schools are open.
There you go. They're protecting freedom, protecting your right to live as you see fit. Schools are open. Disneyland's open. Everything else is doing. They're protecting the vulnerable in the population and suffering a hell of a lot less consequences than we in California are across the board. That's the difference. Kristi Noem of South Dakota, Ron DeSantis of Florida are the 180-degree opposite of the evil twins, Andrew Cuomo and Gavin Newsom. That's why Kristi Noem and Ron DeSantis, when they walk out to crowds, they get cheers. People love them. Their states are functioning. And why Andrew Cuomo is running like a scalded dog. Because, 10,000 people he's directly responsible for sending them to their death. On top of all the creepy stuff that's coming out with all the stuff, and we'll see how all that works out. Gavin Newsom, just as we played the clips, and you probably won't hear this on any other show, check the dominant and the big guy medias. Did they put the comparisons or up just like we did with Gavin Newsom at the deal and break this down? They should have had, if I was there, they said, hey, my question is, Cicely Meyer Cruz said, we ain't opening, not even, they told you your March 31st number. They should give that the big middle finger. She said, we ain't even open until April 9th or the 12th of ever. It's on tape. Go read it. Listen to it. Watch it. It's absolutely incredulous of what's going on. One thing I did agree with Trump, a couple things. He said we got to put a clamps on this big tech. If there's anything the Sherman Antitrust Act should ever be used on, they should be breaking up Google and Facebook and all this other stuff. Just on the stuff that they lied to us about selling our information and said we wouldn't do it when they were on top of that. Plus the whole shutting off and everything. And two, he said, you must, and I hope he's right on this. I don't know if you can do it. He said you got to purge the Republican Party of the turncoat Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney, on down the line, get along. He didn't add it, but I'm going to add Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy out here too. They got to go. Just like the whole crew. We need to flush the whole crew, whole leadership, and there's some good guys in it. Peter Coos, a guy, he might have to be sacrificed. Flush them all out, start all over again. We should in this recall going on. One candidate that would be very intriguing that's making noises about running for governor. This is an ABC 7 News. So here we go. I think.
Kimberly Guilfoyle, who's divorced from Governor Gavin Newsom and currently is dating Donald Trump Jr., may be considering a return to the Golden State. She just bought a home in Florida with Don Jr. There are reports that she is coming back to California and is apparently being urged to run for public office. So where would she live and what office would she run for?
It would be, just on the apropos, just think of this. If the recall election came down to Gavin Newsom getting recalled and his ex-wife being voted in as the replacement for him, that would be worth the price. That would be a radio talk show host dream. The ironies on top of that. Plus, she's hooked up with Donald Trump Jr. on this whole thing on that. I mean, that would be. I mean, you'd fall out of your chair. You talk about you wouldn't have. That would be the only TV show anybody would watch. All these other reality TV shows, all this other crap you watch, would be nothing compared to a campaign where the ballot was recall Newsom, and you're going to replace him with his ex-wife, who's now dating Donald Trump Jr. Oh man, I can't wait for that.
1 minute.
A lot of stuff coming up on that. We'll get to it. Heck, I ain't even probably got to half of the stuff that I had lined up on the weekend, but we'll cover it all out. Cover it all this. Plenty of time to do that. Remember, March is National Stop Blaming White People Month. Accept responsibility for your own bad choices. Hug a white person. Couldn't have
30 seconds
on that. Thanks to Debbie Lynn for sending that or posting that. And I reposted on IE Newswire going back and forth because it sums it up. That sums up a lot of what we have, a lot of the challenges we face today.
Here we go, 10 seconds. OEMSupplyKing.com.
OEM Supply King. We got it!
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio.
is funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday at 5:30 on the Mother Met, 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire and the aforementioned AM band. Joining our vast audience on IE Newswire on Facebook, Twitch, and we're back up on YouTube on that. We'll have Dr. Kelly Victory coming up here in a couple minutes on that. Had a lot of stuff on that, like, put that back up. I love that number 4. March is National Stop Blaming White People Month. Accept responsibility for your own bad choices. Hug a white person. We had that, and we maybe we'll play at the end of the show. We had Buddy Brown on that with his new song, Be Less White on that. I think is awful funny on that. We talked about Lion Newsom with his fake, phony deal on, we're going to reopen schools, and the LA Teachers Union said, we don't think so. On top of that. So you look back and forth every day on this, and you find out, you think, just what in the heck's going on? We covered on that. We covered the and everybody's doing the Trump stuff, and you've probably seen a lot of that. We did Kristi Noem and Ron DeSantis, the governors of South Dakota and Florida, respectively, in contrast to the evil twins, Gavin Newsom and Andrew Cuomo, both under fire, one under recall, one facing impeachment for all of the things they have done, killed us back and forth on the deal. We've had that. The surprise candidate that might be running for governor in the recall election that we played on that. You're not gonna. It couldn't get any better than if we would have the recall election and have his ex-wife running against him. That would just be absolute. That would just be too cool for a radio talk show host. I'll tell you that. And not only the premier expert in physician that's ever walked the earth, because I haven't found anything yet that she's been wrong on, or her analysis hasn't been spot on. She's a trauma surgeon, consultant to major corporations, and all around one of the greatest persons walking the planet, Dr. Kelly Victory.
Thank you, Roy. As I always say, I would jump on your show just for the introduction. It's worth it.
Well, that's anything what it takes to get the guests on, we have to do. On that, we did a Newsom. He came out today with his so-called reopening, non-reopening plan with the schools. We played a couple of clips. I want to get to the ones where we did... where he said, oh, yeah, we got deals, we're signing this with the legislature and all this, and we got deals with all the union heads, all that. We'll get into that later. But the question, and I got to give the local California local press, I got to give them credit. I with many others, have been, on their case for a long time, questions and following up on them. The first question out of the box was, why aren't we getting the outbreak statistics from the schools that are open in California, and what effect has it had on COVID, how it has spread, yada yada. Well, that was the first question and a follow-up, and he ducked all around it, wouldn't answer the question. Then it came to the last question. The reporter said, I am following up on whatever XYZ asked. Here it is again, same question, and the first reporter said, oh, it's all transparent, we got them all up on there. He said, I'm on your website. He said, I'm looking. He said, nothing's been posted since January. It's the 1st of January. We have nothing. You're saying all this stuff, and we have nothing. Second reporter asks him the same thing, and he ducks all around it. And I'm going to say the reason they're not doing it, because the outbreak information is going to show that COVID-19 in the schools has had little, if any, effect on anything, on teachers, kids. There is no danger of kids or teachers, or practically any, or no more greater risk than that of them doing anything else than being in the class or being at home or anything else. And that's why that information is not up on the website, Dr. Kelly.
I think you're spot on, Roy. I think this is the absolutely 100% the issue, because the real data will show what we've known, frankly, for a year. We knew this at the late spring of last year, that children, number one, are at essentially zero risk. Number two, so they're not at risk themselves for getting COVID. Number two, they are not vectors of it, meaning they don't get it, are asymptomatic, but then somehow spread it to a teacher or to a parent or to, a custodian or somebody else at the school. We've known this since last year, and there's no question in my mind that the data, if they looked at it and made it public, will show exactly that. We know that from the dozens and dozens of countries around the globe that opened their schools to in-person teaching last year, and frankly, from the numbers of states in the U.S. that are open for in-person teaching, including places like Texas and Florida and South Dakota and lots of states. We know we are seeing no uptick in cases. There has not been a single confirmed case of a child spreading it to another child or to a teacher or to a coach in terms of children's sporting events. So every time the data doesn't support what they want it to support, then they go back to a model. Then we go back to some sort of, ethereal model that they're using. Or we listen to the teachers union who throws out words like safety and science and without any basis. It is absolutely, you are 100% correct in my estimation.
Which I said, and I don't, and you probably won't hear this on most other shows or the analysis or breaking down the tape like that, because I said if I'd ask a question, this would have been the next one I would have asked on that, because he come out and said, "Oh, we got this deal. We're gonna provide money if they open the schools up by March 31st, and they don't have to be teachers do not have to be vaccinated coming in. Yada 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 yada." Well, they're UTLA, the United Teachers of LA, and the odious president of that, in my opinion, Cicely Myert Cruz, said. And then they were trying to, before they were posting her weekly updates on Friday on the website, and then some others started digging those little quotes out. So then they moved it off their web, but we dug that out. And she's saying not only you can stick your March 31st where the sun don't shine, we're not even opening up till April 9th or probably the 12th of November. Until every kid, every staff member, every teacher, everything else is vaccinated, that the school buildings are hermetically sealed in a bubble, and they will have to be purged of any kind of germ that is known to mankind, because somebody might get sick. Or that word safety. If I heard, and that's another one, if I hear the word safety, which has been maligned and killed meaning as we're going through, my head is going to explode. But again, he's saying he's got a deal. He done that. He went through the press conference, and there's the second biggest the school district and teachers union in California, and she's saying no way.
Right, and this is the proverbial Charlie Brown of the football, Roy. They will continue to move the goalposts. We've seen this over and over again with the teachers union. I listened to the entirety of her speech today, where she talks about things as if she's some sort of authority on things like variants. Oh my gosh, we've got the new variants, and they're very scary. And quote unquote, according to this head of the teachers union, they may be more deadly. Well, I'll tell you right now, and you heard it here from Dr. Kelly Victory, if a new variant is, quote, more deadly than the original one, it will go down in history as the first time a virus has ever mutated and become more lethal. That's not how it works. All viruses mutate, Roy. The good news is when they mutate, they become weaker. They become less lethal. They become less capable of causing serious disease. So the fear merchants don't tell you that, either because they want to continue the fear or because they are like this woman. They just are stupid and they don't know it. But to say that we can't open schools because there are new variants out there, or that teachers need to be vaccinated, or that we can't allow children to be at risk. Here's the newsflash. Children aren't at risk. They were never at risk, and this isn't new news. We've known it from the beginning. It is time for schools to be reopened. Gavin Newsom needs to show some leadership. He needs to either say to the teachers union, here's the deal, you need to go back to work or we will find someone to replace you. That's the reality. Everybody, most people at least, would rather stay home, get a paycheck, get all of their benefits, and do nothing. Do you not think that your average policeman would rather stay home, not put his body armor on, sit in his PJs in front of the television, and still collect his paycheck? I bet they would. Your average doctor or nurse or grocery store clerk would. Your average trash collector, engineer, all the people who are out there doing their jobs every day would rather stay home, sit on the sofa, and collect a paycheck. But the only people doing that right now are the teachers in the teachers unions. And it's unconscionable, it's unacceptable, and they are not at risk. I'm not asking them to do something that causes them to, garner hazard pay. For the love of God, kids aren't at risk. And if you're a teacher who is over the age of 65, then you can choose to stay home. You can choose to teach remotely, but do not penalize our kids.
It's really all about the money, and in 18 more days, it will be the 1-year anniversary when Gavin Newsom ordered the first lockdown order. And almost before he was done with the last word of we are locking down California, I think California teachers, as teachers locals, were saying when he said we are shutting down the schools, they said, well, are we getting paid? We can't shut down the schools, so what about our paychecks? He said, Newsom came out the next day and said, you guys are guaranteed you're not going to miss any paychecks, nothing. And you know what you heard from them? Silencio. I want to hear of the teacher, staff person, employee from any school district in the state of California that lost one slice of 1 penny in the past almost year, Dr. Kelly.
No, they haven't, and that's really the problem. And the bottom line is with this, Roy, in addition to the fact that kids are being robbed of an education, kids are being thrown further and further into the abyss of hopelessness, depression, loneliness, anxiety, fatigue, all of the things that are plaguing kids today. In addition to that, it continues to foment fear about this virus. I have never said and will never say that COVID-19 isn't real. We know it's a real virus. We know there are some people who can become profoundly ill from this and have died from it. But to suggest that children are at risk from this is preposterous. To suggest that teachers who are in contact with children are at risk is preposterous. This is simply a way for them to demand more and more of their social justice platform, which includes everything from defunding the police to improving the tree canopy warriors that they are. The bottom line is kids are not more tragic than that, is the psychosocial impact. I have never heard of or seen the kind of distress that we are seeing right now. And if all you need to do is spend a day like I do on Zoom or other, conference calls with physicians from all around the country who are reporting astronomical numbers of kids with depression, anxiety, sleeplessness, insomnia, nightmares, eating disorders, substance abuse, you name it. And the idea that where is the left? Where's the left whose normal mantra is, what about the children? Okay, what about the children, dang it? They are suffering, and they're suffering because we have a teachers union that is controlling all the shots. If only we had a governor who would govern, who would stand up and do his job, exert his authority, and say, here is your choice. Go back to work, or we will find someone who will.
Exactly. I mean, again, I think it was 82. Ronald Reagan with the air traffic controllers said exactly the same thing. And, of all the hue and cries, airplanes are going to fall out of the sky, and it's just going to be Armageddon's coming, World War III, and not one hair was harmed on anyone when he fired the air traffic controllers for this exact same. They said the same. They were pulling the same crap. Oh, we're you can't depend. No flights will go on if we weren't working. No flights were delayed. Nothing happened. No accidents out of the sky. So if you really think that you are that important, any individual does. If you really think, you know what? I don't know how many billions of years this Earth has been spinning, but it's going to keep doing. It's going to keep doing it whether you're here or not. And your time on this Earth is very short. I mean, it's like a speck in the grand scheme of things. So if you really think that the world revolves around you, Mother Nature, whatever you believe, will show you how wrong you are.
Right, and let's take. I speak from authority. I not only work and haven't missed a day of work during this pandemic, Roy. I see patients. I stand 3 inches from their mouths while I put a stethoscope on their chest. Okay? I am not staying home saying, oh my gosh, I need new air handling systems and plexiglass shields. Okay? The reality is there are people out there working, and I don't consider myself a hero. I consider myself a realist. I don't have any overwhelming health issues. I'm in school. They need an education, and they need the psychosocial components that go along with in-person learning. We are losing a generation of kids. I don't know how we come back from this. How do you replace a child who has lost, a 6-year-old who missed 6 through 8, who missed, a year and a half of school? The amount of development those kids are supposed to have in that time period, well beyond how much they learn about reading, writing, arithmetic, is you can't replace that. And the toll that this is taking on kids is truly unconscionable.
You probably know the number much better than I do, but I think it's something like up to 8 years old. You learn 90% of everything you're going to learn by the time you're 8 years old. And your ability to learn things from 0 to 8 is like astronomical off the charts to that. So, I mean, you want to follow the science or what we know as science. That's the science. And again, while up in Oakland, like they had they've got the guy that was up there. He's walking. The union president up there is walking his kids into the private school or preschool or whatever of that. While the vast 98.7% of your kids, just like Gavin Newsom is doing, are getting harmed in ways we'll never be able to make up.
Well, let's talk about that whole thing about the hypocrisy. We've seen this from the beginning, Roy. The very first episode that people can remember was Nancy Pelosi going to get her hair done. We saw Lori Lightfoot do it. We saw Gavin Newsom going to the French Laundry. We see people on the left taking their kids to school. Anthony Fauci has been caught multiple times on film taking his mask off as soon as he thinks the cameras aren't rolling. And the reason I point this out isn't because I think what they are doing is dangerous at all. I think what it is it reflects that they know darn well that the stuff that they are preaching to you and me, the stuff that they are demanding that we do, wear a mask, socially distance, stay home, don't go to Cabo, don't get together with your family for Thanksgiving, don't get on a plane, don't go to school. If they actually believed that those things were harmful, would risk the health and wellness of their own children or their own health and wellness, do you think they'd do them? No, they wouldn't. They are doing it behind closed doors because they know darn well this is a bunch of hooey. They know darn well that the virus is real, but that they have hyped up the actual risk, the actual concerns way out of proportion to reality. Otherwise, they would not put themselves and their children at that level of risk.
100% on there. And it really is mind-boggling on me, the mentality of those that say, "Oh, I don't want my kids to go to school," or "I'm afraid," or da. That when they see this evidence or something and they're not processing this or that, or they're buying the other control side of it. I mean, that's what that's what I see the ensuing fight of is coming up. I mean, looks like we're on the precipice of having a recall election on Newsom. I said we cannot endure one more second than we have to under the leadership of this goofball as we have as a governor. We got about a couple minutes left. I'll let you wrap it up.
Well, there's a lot of, obviously, focus on the school issue. I think vaccines are the next things we really need to talk about. We now have the third vaccine that is on the market under an emergency use authorization. That's the one from Johnson & Johnson that just came out and was authorized for an emergency use authorization this week. Lots of people have questions about it, and I think that what remains to be seen is not only the efficacy of these vaccines, Roy, but far, far, far more importantly in my mind is the safety of them. They have not been fully tested, and I have some significant consistently and closely at all of the data as it rolls in these next few weeks.
Thanks for being on. We'll do it again real soon, Dr. Kelly. That's what we were talking about across this whole thing. Whatever, like Kristi Noem said, the whole problem in this whole thing is government. I mean, whether you want to take the teachers' unions or Gavin Newsom or the legislatures or your own city councils or school boards, county supervisors, whatever, that's where the problem's lying in this stuff. It's not anything we are doing specifically, but it is our fault because we're the ones that ultimately elected them to represent us in our representative republic. So we have got to do better. We have another chance to reset at a national intelligence for Donald Trump for a while. Was the only one that mentioned it at the CPAC conference, but it should be a priority, should be talked about. And if Trump really wants to reform, purge the Republican Party, he can start in California. He can get behind the recall, use that bully pulpit to focus on this upcoming recall election, get rid of Gavin Newsom, purge the Republican Party, not only in California, but nationwide, of all the turncoat establishment types that have been working with the Democrats and the left for decades, hosing us under the workbench, abusing us. And that's putting it very kindly. That's not the words I would really like to use. For far too long. We've got to stop it. We can stop it. It's our responsibility to stop it. Our future, our kids' futures, and generations to come are going to depend on the actions we take today. Like I said, heck, we could have went another 3 hours with all the stuff I have lined up, but we'll maybe hit some of it tomorrow, and then of course there's going to be more stuff coming on, because it seems like 2020, we thought we were over the worst of it in 2020. Pray tell of that. It seems like it's coming in hard. It seems like we were getting 95 mile an hour fastballs in 2020. Now we're getting 100 plus. But we'll be here to cover it, break it down like nobody else does on this. Going back and forth, we'll be in tomorrow on a Taco Tuesday with all the news and views and everything else that goes on.